What is a person's integrity worth? For Mia Sanchez, a waitress buried in debt, it was worth more than the $200 bill she'd just served. But for Alistair Vane, the billionaire watching her, the test was simple. He placed a single, insulting $5 bill on the table. He was a man with a terminal diagnosis and a family of vultures, and he was searching for one, just one, honest person. He expected anger. He expected her to be fired. He never expected that her answer to his cruel test wouldn't just change her life, but would lead him to disinherit his entire family and rewrite his $80 billion will. The silverware at the Crimson Quill was heavier than most people's rent. The restaurant, a bastion of old New York money, nestled just off Fifth Avenue, was designed to feel like a private library where billionaires whispered over plates of food that cost more than a mortgage payment. Tonight, the most prominent table, number 12, the one with the private view of the street, was occupied by Alistair Vane and his 2 children. Alistair Vane was a man who owned the sky. His company, Vane Tech Industries, built the navigation systems in 70% of the world's aircraft and the satellites that watched over them. He was worth an estimated $80 billion. He was also, according to a recent and very private diagnosis from a team of specialists at Mount Sinai, dying. Across from him sat his son, Julian. Julian, 35, wore a suit so expensive it looked liquid. He was loud, bragging about a recent hostile takeover he'd masterminded, though Alistair knew his son had merely signed the papers the real executives prepared. "And then, father," Julian boomed, slicing into his $200 steak, "I told their CEO, you either take our offer or we'll burn your company to the ground by morning." He folded. Just like that. "How brutish," said Serafina, Alistair's daughter. She was 38, draped in pearls and a practiced aura of sympathy. "You must have been terrified, Julian. Daddy, he's so brave." Alistair merely stirred his consommé. Brave? Julian was a parasite. Serafina was a viper. They weren't his children. They were his beneficiaries. In the 3 weeks since his diagnosis, they had circled him, their concern so transparently false it made him physically ill. They were waiting for him to die. Julian wanted the company. Serafina wanted the liquidity. Neither, he suspected, would mourn him for a single second. This dinner was his idea, a final, agonizing test of his own patience, and as he watched them bicker over who would control the Vane Tech Charitable Foundation after he was gone, Julian wanting to fund innovation, sports cars, and Serafina wanting to support the arts, sponsoring parties for her friends, a cold, hard resolve settled in Alistair's chest. He would not let these 2 fools destroy his legacy. Their waitress approached. Her name tag read Mia. She was efficient, quiet, and had the exhausted, intelligent eyes of someone who belonged somewhere else. She moved with a practiced grace, refilling water glasses without interrupting, clearing plates with ghost-like efficiency. She was invisible to Julian and Serafina, who spoke through her as if she were a piece of furniture. "I'll need another bottle of the Chateau Margaux," Julian snapped, not looking at her. "And be quick about it." "Yes, sir," Mia said, her voice placid. Alistair watched her. He saw the slight tremor in her hand as she poured the wine, a sign of a double shift. He saw the worn-out soles of her black regulation shoes. He saw her glance at Julian's obnoxious, diamond-encrusted watch with an expression he couldn't quite place. Not envy, but something analytical. "The bill, Mr. Vane," she said softly, placing the leather folder on the table 2 hours later. The total came to $1,245.50. Julian and Serafina were already arguing about their summer plans in the Hamptons. Alistair pulled out his wallet. He looked at his children, their greedy, entitled faces. He looked at the waitress, Mia, who was politely looking away to give them privacy. He felt a sudden, sharp impulse, a cruel, decisive test. He wanted to see what would happen. He wanted to see if the world was just as rotten as the two people sitting across from him. He took out his corporate black card and tucked it into the folder. Then, deliberately, he pulled a single, crisp $5 bill from his wallet and placed it neatly on top of the closed folder. A $5 tip on a $1,200 bill. It wasn't just an insult. In a place like the Crimson Quill, it was a declaration of war. It was the kind of move that got a waitress fired. "We're ready," Alistair said, his voice like gravel. Mia walked over. She picked up the folder. Her eyes flickered to the $5 bill. Alistair watched her, his gaze unwavering. He saw her jaw tighten just for a fraction of a second. He saw the blood drain from her face. Julian saw it too, and let out a short, barking laugh. "Looks like someone wasn't happy with the service, Father." Mia stood perfectly still. She looked at the $5. She looked at the folder. She looked at Julian's smirking face. Then, she looked directly at Alistair Vane. She held his gaze for a full 3 seconds. Alistair felt a strange jolt. Her eyes weren't angry. They were clear. She picked up the folder and the $5 bill, turned on her heel, and walked away. "Well, that's that," Serafina said with a delicate sniff. "I suppose she'll be spitting in your coffee now, Father. Shall we go?" "No," Alistair said. "We wait." The wait was electric. Julian was enjoying the spectacle, already looking around for the manager, whom he clearly expected to storm over and berate the ungrateful waitress. Serafina was reapplying her lipstick, bored. Alistair Vane simply sat, his hands folded on the table, watching the spot where Mia had disappeared. He'd run this test before, in different ways. He'd accidentally dropped a $100 bill in a boardroom to see which executive would pocket it. He'd forgotten his gold watch in a hotel room. In his experience, 90% of people failed. They either took the money, or they groveled, or they became passive-aggressive. He expected Mia to either return in tears, return with a furious manager, or simply process the card and slam the receipt on the table. 2 minutes later, she reappeared. She walked directly to their table. She was holding the leather folder. Julian leaned forward, a predatory grin on his face. Mia placed the folder gently on the table in front of Alistair. She did not open it. "Mr. Vane," she said. Her voice was low, steady, and held zero trace of anger. It was this total absence of emotion that caught Alistair off guard. "Yes," he replied. "Thank you for the $5, she said, placing the single bill beside the folder. "However, I believe you may have forgotten this." She opened the folder and, with 2 fingers, slid Alistair's black credit card out. She pushed it an inch toward him. Alistair stared at the card. This was not the response he had anticipated. He had, in fact, intentionally left the card, assuming she would run the $1,145.50 charge and then have to deal with the $5 tip. "I see," Alistair said, his mind racing. "You didn't run the card." "No, sir," Mia said. "I couldn't. You see, I was concerned. This bill is $1,245, and this," she tapped the $5 bill, "is $5. It's such a specific, round number. I was worried that in your discussion you may have become confused or distressed and left this as payment by mistake, instead of the 15 or 20% that is customary." Julian snorted. "Is this a joke? Are you trying to extort my father?" Mia didn't even look at Julian. Her eyes remained locked on Alistair. "On the contrary," she said, her voice sharpening, just a fraction. "I was worried this wasn't a tip at all, but a sign of a medical issue. Confusion, disorientation. Leaving a $5 tip on a $1,200 bill is unusual. Leaving your credit card behind is also unusual. Doing both at the same time She leaned in ever so slightly. Could be symptomatic of a transient ischemic attack, a mini stroke. Given your age and the flush in your cheeks, I thought it best to return your card and make sure you were feeling all right. The table went dead silent. Julian's mouth hung open. Seraphina's manicured hand froze on its way to her pearls. Alistair Vane felt like he'd been struck by lightning. She hadn't seen the $5 as an insult. She had seen it as a symptom. She had diagnosed him. The most terrifying part? She was right. He had been feeling lightheaded. His doctors had warned him about a TIA. That is quite an assumption, Alistair managed, his voice suddenly hoarse. Is it? Mia replied. My other assumption was that you left this $5 bill as a test of my character. That you, a man of immense wealth, were using your power to see if I would grovel or weep or make a scene. That you were treating me not as a person, but as a rat in your own personal maze. She paused, and a small, sad smile touched her lips. I decided to believe the first theory. It's more human. It assumes you're a person who made a mistake, not a monster who enjoys cruelty. Alistair felt the blood rush to his own face. He had been so thoroughly, so completely, and so elegantly dissected. So, Mia continued, I will not be processing this card tonight, sir, and I will be refusing the $5 tip. She pushed the $5 bill next to the credit card. My service tonight, by the Crimson Quill's standards, was worth approximately $240. Your tip, whether it's $5 or $500, is ultimately a reflection of the giver, not the receiver. And your test tells me more about your character than my reaction will ever tell you about mine. She squared her shoulders. I will have my manager, Mr. Dubois, transfer this table to another server to close you out. I am clocking out. Good evening, Mr. Vane. I hope you feel better. She turned and walked away. She didn't slam anything. She didn't burst into tears. She simply left. Julian and Seraphina exploded. She's fired, Julian yelled, signaling for the manager. Father, that was an outrage. She accused you of being senile, Seraphina cried, her eyes wide with false concern. This is exactly what I've been worried about. Father, you're not well. But Alistair wasn't listening. He was staring at the $5 bill and the black credit card. He had tested a waitress, and a billionaire had failed. He had spent his life surrounded by people who told him what he wanted to hear. His children, his board, his assistants. And in the span of 2 minutes, a waitress in a $30 uniform had diagnosed his potential medical condition, called out his manipulative behavior, and checkmated him with a level of integrity he hadn't seen in 40 years. Shut up, both of you, Alistair snapped her. His voice was quiet, but it cut through their hysterics. He picked up the $5 bill. He felt its crispness, a reflection of the giver, not the receiver. He stood up, leaving his stunned children at the table. He walked to the front, where the manager, Mr. Dubois, was already approaching, his face a mask of frantic apology. Mr. Vane, I am mortified. Mia Sanchez, Alistair interrupted, is the most impressive person I've met this decade. I want her full name and any information you have on her. Do it now. Sir, she's already left the building. I am not asking, Alistair Vane said, his voice dropping to the temperature of ice. I am telling. Alistair Vane did not sleep that night. He sat in the study of his 70th floor penthouse, a glass of untouched whiskey on his desk, the New York skyline glittering like a carpet of diamonds below him. On his desk was a single sheet of paper. It was a bio, hastily assembled by Mr. Dubois, who had been terrified of losing the Vanetech corporate account. Name, Mia Sanchez. Age, 28. Employee, since 2 years. Status, exemplary record. No write-ups. It was sparse. It was not enough. At 3:00 a.m. he made a call. The phone was answered on the first ring. "Marcus." "Mr. Vane." The voice on the other end was professional and discreet. Marcus Thorne had been Alistair's head of private security, and more accurately, his personal fixer, for 15 years. He was the only man Alistair trusted. "I have a name, Mia Sanchez. She works at the Crimson Quill. I want to know everything. Where she lives, where she's from, what she eats for breakfast, and why she sounds more like a neurosurgeon than a waitress. I want it by morning." "Understood, sir." The line clicked off. Alistair leaned back. His children, Julian and Serafina. He'd left them at the restaurant, forcing them to take a taxi home. They had been furious. Serafina had called him, weeping, accusing him of being cruel and erratic. Julian had sent a text. "This is proof. You're not fit to run the company." They were already making their move. He knew their lawyers were likely already meeting, drafting petitions to have him declared incompetent, to seize control of Vane Tech before he could do something crazy, like change his will. "He is crazy," Alistair muttered to the empty room. He thought he could find an honest person with a $5 bill. He looked at the diagnosis on his desk. Cerebral amyloid angiopathy, a rare, untreatable condition where proteins built up in the blood vessels of the brain. It led to microbleeds, cognitive decline, and eventually a massive, fatal hemorrhage. The specialists at Mount Sinai had given him 6 months, a year if he was lucky, 6 months to protect an $80 billion empire from his own children. He needed a new plan. He needed an heir. Not of his blood, but of his mind. He had always believed in meritocracy, even as he'd built a dynasty. His children were a monument to his failure as a father. He looked at the $5 bill, which he'd taken from the table. "I was worried this wasn't a tip, but a sign of a medical issue." She hadn't just been guessing. Her reference to a TIA was specific. Too specific. By 7 a.m., Marcus Thorne was in his study, holding a slim folder. Marcus was a man who, like Mia, was perfectly unnoticeable. He wore a simple suit, had a simple haircut, and a face you'd forget instantly. "She's clean, sir," Marcus said, placing the folder on the desk. "No debt, other than the expected. No criminal record. No political affiliations." "Get to the point, Marcus. Why did she know about mini-strokes?" Marcus opened the folder. The first page was a photo of Mia, not in her uniform, but in a blue hospital coat, smiling. The second page was a transcript. "Mia Sanchez," Marcus read, "was 3 months from completing her MD at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine." Alistair sat bolt upright. Johns Hopkins. "She was top of her class," Marcus continued, specializing in pediatric neurology. She had already been accepted into a residency program at Massachusetts General. She was, by all accounts, going to be a superstar. "Was?" Alistair asked, his voice sharp. "What happened?" "Her younger brother, Leo Sanchez, age 19. 2 years ago, just as she was entering her final year, he was diagnosed with a catastrophic, rare genetic condition, a form of restrictive cardiomyopathy. Basically, his heart is turning to stone. He was given months." Alistair felt a cold knot in his stomach. "Their parents are deceased," Marcus said, his voice flat. "Mia is his legal guardian. The experimental treatment he needed was denied by their insurance. She appealed. It was denied again. She sued the insurance company, representing herself. She lost. So she dropped out? She dropped out to care for him full-time. She works 2 jobs, the Crimson Quill from 4 p.m. to midnight, and an orderly position at Hillside Senior Care Center in the Bronx from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Every dollar she makes goes to his medical bills and a small, un-air-conditioned apartment they share. She's been personally researching his condition in her spare time, trying to find a clinical trial." Alistair was silent. He picked up the transcript. He saw the name of the insurance company that had denied the life-saving treatment. He felt the sickness rise in his throat again, but this time it wasn't the amyloidosis. It was Vane Health Assurance, a subsidiary of his own company, Vane Tech. She's been fighting me, Alistair whispered. She doesn't know it's you, sir. Vane Health is just a name on a letterhead to her. But yes, the final denial was signed off by an executive, Julian Vane, promoted last year. Alistair Vane stood up and walked to the window. The sun was rising, painting the city in shades of gold and rose. He, Alistair Vane, had built an empire so large and callous that it was actively trying to kill the brother of the only honest person he'd met in a decade. And last night he had tipped her $5 for her trouble. A reflection of the giver, not the receiver. Her words were no longer just a clever retort. They were a judgment. They were a verdict on his entire life. "Marcus," Alistair said, his back to the room. "What's the name of that nursing home again?" "Hillside Senior Care, sir, in the Bronx. Arrange a visit for me. Today. I want to see it." "Sir, your doctors said you need to rest." "My doctors work for me, Marcus, but I'm not going as Alistair Vane." Marcus paused. "Who are you going as?" Alistair looked at his reflection in the glass. The old, frail, dying billionaire. "I'm going as Mr. Al, a new resident. My children are so eager to put me in a home. Let's see what it's like." Hillside Senior Care smelled of bleach, boiled cabbage, and quiet despair. It was a world away from the crimson quill. The walls were a pale, sickly green. The fluorescent lights hummed. The residents sat in wheelchairs in the hallway, most staring blankly at a small, blaring television. Alistair Vane, dressed in a set of plain pajamas and a worn-out robe Marcus had procured, was wheeled in by an orderly who looked bored. His admission, arranged by Marcus through a complex and expensive series of donations, listed him as Albert Vane, a distant cousin, suffering from mild cognitive decline and recovering from a fall. He was put in a shared room. His roommate, a man named George, was asleep and whistling through his nose. Alistair was now Mr. Al. He was just another piece of old, dying furniture. And he had never felt more alive. He was testing the system again, but this time he wasn't the predator. He was the bait. For the first few hours he was largely ignored. A nurse, a large woman with a sour expression named Nurse Davis, came in. She didn't make eye contact. She checked his chart, took his blood pressure with a rough yank of his arm, and scribbled a note. "Lunch is at noon," she grunted. "Don't be late, we don't wait." Alistair, the man who could ground the world's air traffic with a single phone call, said, "Thank you." He waited. He knew Mia's shift started at 6 a.m. and ended at 2 p.m. It was now 11:30 a.m. At 11:45 a.m. she walked in. She wore practical blue scrubs, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked even more tired than she had last night, with dark circles under her eyes. But she smiled when she saw her patients. She went to George first, gently waking him. "George, time for lunch soon. Let's get you sitting up. How's the breathing today?" She was a different person, warm, patient, and radiating competence. Then she turned to Alistair. Her eyes swept over him, and for a heart-stopping second, Alistair thought she'd recognize him. She didn't. Last night, he was a titan in a $10,000 suit. Today, he was a frail old man in a bathrobe. "Hello," she said, her voice soft. "You must be Mr. Al. I'm Mia, one of the orderlies. Welcome to Hillside. It's not the Four Seasons, but we'll take good care of you." Alistair just nodded, his throat tight. "I'm just here to check your vitals and see if you need anything before lunch," she said, prepping the blood pressure cuff. "You're an orderly?" Alistair asked, his voice a frail imitation of his own. "Today I am," She smiled. Sometimes I'm a waitress. Depends on the time of day. You seem overqualified, he pressed. Mia paused. She looked at him, her smile fading slightly. We all do what we have to do, Mr. Al. We all have our reasons. She took his blood pressure. Her touch was professional, gentle. A world away from Nurse Davis. A bit high, she murmured, looking at his chart. But that's normal for a first day. Now let me just check your medication list against what the pharmacy sent up. She began reviewing the chart. Alistair watched her, her brow furrowed. She read the chart, then read it again. Mr. Al, she said slowly, this chart says you have a severe allergy to penicillin. Is that correct? Yes, Alistair said. Severely. Anaphylaxis. Mia's face went pale. She held up a small paper cup containing 3 pills, which Nurse Davis had left on his tray moments before. Nurse Davis left these for you, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But this blue one? I'm almost certain this is amoxicillin. She was checking the chart again. The pharmacy record confirms it. They sent up amoxicillin for Albert Vane. But your intake form clearly lists the allergy. Nurse Davis didn't check. She was just going to give it to you. If Alistair had taken that pill, he would have been dead in 10 minutes. Mia's composure snapped. A cold, professional fury radiated from her. She hit the call button for the head nurse. Stay right here, Mr. Al. Do not take any of these, she said. When Nurse Davis reappeared, annoyed, Mia confronted her. Nurse Davis, what pill is this? It's his 12 o'clock meds. What do you care? You're an orderly. This is 500 milligrams of amoxicillin. His chart lists a fatal penicillin allergy. You were about to kill him. The colour drained from Nurse Davis's face. The head nurse arrived, and Mia, with the precision of a prosecuting attorney, laid out the facts. The chart, the intake form, the medication, the catastrophic, near-fatal error. Alistair Vane sat in his wheelchair, watching. She wasn't just a waitress. She wasn't just a med student. She was a guardian. She had just saved his life. An hour later, the firestorm had passed. Nurse Davis was suspended. The hillside administration was in full panic mode. Mia came back into his room. She looked exhausted, but triumphant. She closed the door. You're okay, Mr. Al. It's been handled. I've double-checked all your other... She stopped. She was staring at him. Really staring. Her eyes narrowed. Mr. Al, she said slowly, your chart says you're from Poughkeepsie, but your hands, they're soft, manicured, and your robe, it's cheap, but it's new. There are no stains. Alistair's blood ran cold. And your eyes, she said, taking a step closer. I've seen your eyes before. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Last night, the crimson quill. She stared at him, her face a mask of disbelief, confusion, and dawning horror. You're Mr. Vane, Alistair Vane. Alistair let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He dropped the frail old man persona. He sat up straighter, and the familiar mask of command settled back on his features. Hello, Mia, he said. It seems I owe you my life. Mia backed away, her hands shaking. What is this? What are you doing here? Is this another test? Are you trying to get me fired from this job, too? On the contrary, Mia, Alistair said, his voice regaining its familiar authority. You just saved my life. And you did it while believing I was just another forgotten old man. You passed a test I didn't even intend to set. I don't understand, she whispered, leaning against the wall. You're a billionaire. Why are you in a Medicaid-funded nursing home in the Bronx? Because, Alistair said, gesturing to the uncomfortable chair, I am a dying man. And my children, Julian and Serafina, are trying to have me declared incompetent. They're already filing paperwork. They want to put me in a place just like this, or perhaps a fancier one, but a cage all the same, so they can take control of Vain Tech. He watched her as she processed this. Her sharp, analytical mind was piecing it together. You came here to hide? I came here to see you, he corrected. After you left last night, I had my associate investigate you. I know about Johns Hopkins. I know about your brother, Leo. Mia's expression hardened instantly. The fear vanished, replaced by a fierce, protective anger. You leave him out of this. You don't get to talk about him. I know he has restrictive cardiomyopathy, Alistair continued, ignoring her. And I know he was denied an experimental treatment, a TTR silencer therapy, if my research is correct. How could you possibly? The insurance company that denied him, Alistair said, his voice heavy with self-loathing, is Vain Health Assurance. It's one of my subsidiaries. Mia looked like he had struck her, the fight drained out of her, replaced by a devastating, hollow look. All this time, the faceless corporate monster she had been fighting, it was him. You, she breathed. It was you. I didn't know, Alistair said quickly. Not until this morning. It's an autonomous division, one that, I've discovered, has been run into the ground by an executive my son appointed. Mia, what happened to you? To your brother? It's a symptom of the disease that's rotting my entire company. So what is this? Mia asked, her voice bitter. You're here to apologize? To give me a check to make up for the $5 tip and the fact that your company is killing my brother? Save it. I don't want your blood money. I'm not offering you a check, Alistair said. He stood up from the wheelchair, his legs shaky but firm. I'm offering you a job, and I'm offering you justice. I already have 2 jobs, Mr. Vain, and they're the only 2 I can handle while I care for Leo. Leo will be taken care of. As of an hour ago, he was transferred by private ambulance to the cardiac unit at Mount Sinai. He is now under the care of Dr. Isabel Reed, the foremost expert on his condition. The experimental treatment you were fighting for. It was approved. The Vain Tech Board has been advised by me to fund the entire clinical trial, starting immediately. Your brother is the first patient. Mia crumpled into the chair, her hands covering her face. Sobs, choked and dry, tore from her. She had been fighting for so long, and in an instant, the war was over. Why? She finally asked, wiping her face. Why are you doing this? Because, Mia, I am out of time. My children are staging a coup. My board is weak. My legacy is on the verge of being handed to a gaggle of fools. He leaned forward, his eyes boring into hers. Last night, I tested you. I was cruel, and you met my cruelty with integrity and brilliance. Today, I watched you save my life, not because I was a billionaire, but because I was your patient. You have a spine of steel, a mind like a scalpel, and a moral compass that is unshakable. He paused. My children want to put me in a home. They think I'm senile, but they've made a mistake. They've underestimated me. And now, they've underestimated you. What are you talking about? I am rewriting my will. Julian and Serafina will be provided for, but they will not get the company. They will not control my legacy. Then who will? You will, Alistair said. Mia laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. That's insane. I'm a waitress. I'm a part-time orderly. I'm a med school dropout. I don't know the first thing about running a multi-billion-dollar global corporation. You know more than you think, Alistair countered. You know what's right and what's wrong. You know how to read a complex situation and find the truth. You did it at the restaurant, and you did it here. You have the courage to confront a bully, whether it's my son or a negligent nurse. And you have the intelligence to learn the rest. Learn what? In how long? You said you're dying. Yes. I have 6 months, maybe less. Alistair's face was grim, which is why we have to start immediately. I am offering you a position, my personal protégé. You will shadow me. You will learn everything I know about Vane Tech. I will finish your medical credentials with private tutors. I will teach you finance, corporate law, and how to destroy your enemies. And in exchange? In exchange, Alistair said, you will do one thing for me. When I am gone, you will take control of my foundation, and through it, you will take control of Vane Tech. You will tear down the parts that are rotten, like Vane Health Assurance, and you will rebuild it. You will run it with the same integrity you showed me over a $5 tip. Mia stared at him. It was a preposterous, impossible, fairy tale offer. But looking at the cold, calculating and desperate fire in the old billionaire's eyes, she knew it was real. This was her chance, not just to save Leo, but to save everyone like Leo, to ensure no other Vane Health executive could ever sign a death warrant for a 19-year-old boy. My brother, she said, her voice shaking but finding its strength. He's safe? Truly? He's safe. I give you my word. Mia stood up. She looked at the man who, 24 hours ago, had been her tormentor. Now, he was her only hope. Okay, Mr. Vane, she said. Show me how to run your company. The next 6 months were a blur. Mia Sanchez vanished from the world. She was no longer a waitress. She was no longer an orderly. She and Leo, who was responding well to the new treatment, were moved into a secure penthouse apartment in the same building as Alistair. Marcus Thorne, Alistair's fixer, became her handler, her driver, and her head of security. While Alistair's health began its slow, inevitable decline, his mind remained as sharp as a diamond edge. He was a ruthless teacher. Business is not about being nice, Mia, he'd rasp from his wheelchair during a late-night lesson on corporate finance. It's about being right. Your children, Julian and Serafina, think right means, what's right for me? You will teach them it means, what is right, period. Mia's days were grueling. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., she was with tutors from Harvard and Wharton, cramming an MBA's worth of knowledge. From 10 a.m. to noon, she was with lawyers, learning the intricate Baroque structure of Alistair's will and the Vane Tech holding companies. In the afternoons, she sat with Alistair as he held his board meetings via video conference. He introduced her as Dr. Sanchez, my new personal medical advisor and consultant. Julian and Serafina, who were on the board, were incensed. Father, who is this woman? Julian demanded in one meeting. Why is she privy to our Q3 projections? Dr. Sanchez is here, Alistair said, his voice weak but his eyes glittering. To ensure my cognitive decline isn't affecting my judgment. She is a neurological expert, and she has informed me I am perfectly sane. Mia just smiled, a cool, placid smile that Julian found infuriating. He had no idea this was the same waitress he'd mocked at the Crimson Quill. She had cut her hair, she wore bespoke suits, she looked the part. But the most important lessons happened at night. Alistair would show her the guts of the company. This, he said, pointing to a name on a spreadsheet, is Robert Shaw, head of our aerospace division. He's a genius, but he's loyal to Julian. He has to go. This, he pointed to another, is Maria Flores. She's in middle management in R&D. She's the one who actually invented our new guidance system. Julian stole the credit. You will promote her. He taught her not just business, but his business. He taught her his weaknesses, his secrets, and his regrets. Vane Health was my wife's idea, he confessed one night, looking out over the city. She was a good woman. She believed in affordable care. After she died, I let it go. I let Julian put his cronies in charge. It became a monster. It became the kind of company that would deny your brother. "We will fix it," Mia said, her voice quiet. "No," Alistair said. "You will. You will burn it to the ground and build something better from the ashes. Promise me." "I promise," she said. During this time, Mia visited Leo every day. His color was returning. The vibrant, funny brother she thought she'd lost was coming back. "This is wild, Elle," he'd laugh from his hospital bed at Mount Sinai. "You're like a secret CEO, but don't forget us little people." "Never," she promised, kissing his forehead. "This is for the little people." 5 months and 28 days after their meeting at the Crimson Quill, Alistair Vane summoned Mia to his bedside. He was frail, a wisp of his former self. "It's time," he whispered. "Alistair, no. Don't be sentimental. It's just a transaction. My life is ending. Yours is beginning." He gripped her hand, his own as cold as paper. "Do not let them win, Mia. Do not hesitate. Be the scalpel." "I won't," she said, tears in her eyes. "Good," he smiled, a faint, dry smile. "Now, repeat to me the protocol for a hostile takeover of a majority shareholder's voting rights." Alistair Vane died 2 days later. The news flashed across the globe. The titan of industry was gone. Julian and Serafina, in a grotesque public display, gave a tearful press conference, vowing to carry on their father's incredible legacy. The funeral was a state affair. Mia attended, standing at the back, listed in the program only as Dr. E. Sanchez, personal physician. Julian and Serafina didn't even notice her. They were too busy accepting condolences from senators and CEOs, their black mourning clothes already looking like coronation robes. They thought they had won. They thought the empire was theirs. They had no idea their father's real heir was watching them, her mind already running through the first 5 items on her agenda. The will reading was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Monday, 1 week after the funeral. It was held in the main conference room on the 80th floor of Vane-Tech Tower. The room was dominated by a 50-foot slab of black marble for a table and a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Central Park. Julian Vane sat at the head of the table, the seat that had always been his father's. He looked comfortable. Serafina sat beside him, dabbing at her dry eyes with a black lace handkerchief. Their personal lawyers were assembled. The Vane-Tech executive board was present, looking somber. The door opened, and Mr. Harrison, Alistair's personal lawyer for 40 years, walked in. He was a stiff, older man who disapproved of nearly everyone, especially Julian. "We are all here," Mr. Harrison began, his voice dry. "But we are waiting for one more beneficiary." Julian scoffed. "Who? The dog?" "Just read the will, Harrison." "As you wish, but the will stipulates she must be present." The doors opened again. Marcus Thorne, Alistair's quiet fixer, stepped in. He held the door open for Mia Sanchez. She wore a dark grey, impeccably tailored suit. Her hair was sleek. She was followed by a young man who looked healthy and vibrant, with the same sharp eyes. Leo. Julian and Serafina stared. "Who in God's name is this?" Serafina whispered. Julian's eyes narrowed. He recognized her. Not from the board meetings, but from somewhere else. "Wait a minute. You're the waitress." Mia's lips curved in a small, cold smile. "I was. Hello, Julian." "What is the meaning of this?" Julian roared, standing up. "Harrison, has my father's senility infected you too? Get this kitchen help out of my boardroom." "Please sit, Mr. Vane," Mr. Harrison said, "or I will have security remove you. Dr. Mia Sanchez is here as a primary beneficiary, as is her brother, Mr. Leo Sanchez." The room went silent. The board members exchanged nervous glances. Mia and Leo took seats at the far end of the table. Mia placed a slim, black briefcase in front of her. Mr. Harrison put on his glasses and unrolled the will. "I will skip the preamble. Let's begin with the personal bequests. He read through a list of minor items. Properties to cousins, donations to museums. To my daughter, Seraphina Vane Lockwood, he read, who has always valued the appearance of things. I leave her my entire collection of fine art and my property in the Hamptons. I also leave her a trust fund of $20 million. It is my hope that this will be enough for her to continue her life, as she has shown no capacity for earning a single dollar of her own. Seraphina went white. 20 million? That's an insult. To my son, Julian Vane, Harrison continued, his voice monotone, who measures a man's worth only in dollars, and who so desperately wishes to be me. I leave him my New York penthouse, my collection of watches, and a trust fund of $20 million. May he find this sum as empty as I have found his character. Julian was shaking. He can't do this. He was senile. I'll contest. The company. Who gets the company? Mr. Harrison looked up. Ah, yes, the company. Vane Tech Industries. As you know, Mr. Vane's controlling interest, 51% of all voting shares, was not held by him personally, but by a private foundation. The Vane Family Foundation, Julian said, which I control. Not quite, Mr. Harrison said. Last month, Alistair Vane dissolved the Vane Family Foundation. He transferred 100% of his controlling shares into a new legal entity. He paused, relishing the moment. The will reads, the entirety of my $80 billion controlling interest in Vane Tech Industries shall be held in perpetuity by a new foundation dedicated to medical innovation and ethical corporate governance. This foundation will be named the Leo Sanchez Medical Innovation Fund. Leo, sitting next to Mia, gasped. What? Julian screamed, his face purple. He named it after her brother. And who, Seraphina whispered, her eyes wide with horror, controls this foundation? Mr. Harrison looked to the end of the table. The will states, sole, irrevocable, and permanent control of the Leo Sanchez Medical Innovation Fund, and its full, unassailable 51% voting power over the Vane Tech board, is hereby granted to its founder and new chairwoman, Dr. Mia Sanchez. The room exploded. Julian lunged across the table, scattering papers. You gold-digging witch! You tricked him! He was a sick old man, and you waitress! You tricked him! Marcus Thorne intercepted Julian with the ease of a man handling a misbehaving child, pinning his arms behind his back. She's a waitress! Julian shrieked at the board. She knows nothing! Mia stood up. The room fell silent again. She opened her black briefcase. I was a waitress, Julian, she said, her voice clear and carrying across the vast room. I was also an orderly. But for the last 6 months, I have also been Alistair Vane's personal student. She pulled out a stack of documents. I am Dr. Mia Sanchez. I hold an MD from Johns Hopkins, which Alistair helped me complete. I also hold an accelerated executive certificate from Wharton. And as of this morning, as the chairwoman of the new majority shareholder, I am your boss. Julian and Seraphina were apoplectic. The board members were stunned, their faces a mixture of confusion and terror. They were staring at a 28-year-old woman they had never heard of, who now owned them. This is a farce, Seraphina cried. We will sue. We will have her thrown in jail. You are welcome to try, Mia said calmly. She walked to the head of the table, standing in the spot Julian had claimed. Your lawyers will find that Alistair was certified as 100% legally competent by 3 separate psychiatric teams, right up until the day he died. His will is ironclad. She turned to the executive board. Her eyes were no longer the warm, compassionate eyes of the orderly or the exhausted eyes of the waitress. They were the cold, calculating eyes of Alistair Vane. My first act as chairwoman of the board's controlling entity, Mia announced, is to call an emergency vote. I vote to remove Julian Vane from the board of directors, effective immediately, for gross mismanagement. All those in favor? She raised her hand. It was 51% of the vote. The motion passes, she said. Julian, you are fired. Marcus will escort you from the building. Your assets are frozen pending an audit into the Vane Health Assurance Division. You can't, Julian stammered, his rage collapsing into pathetic disbelief. I can, Mia said. I also vote to remove Seraphina Vane Lockwood from the board for dereliction of duty. All in favor? She raised her hand again. Motion passes. Seraphina, you're out. My father, Seraphina wept, would never. Your father, Mia cut her off, was a man who tested people. He tested me with a $5 tip, and I called him out. He tested you your entire lives to see if you had a single shred of his integrity, and you both failed, every single day. She turned back to the board. My second act. I am appointing a new interim CEO, effective immediately. Maria Flores, from R&D. Robert Shaw, you are demoted. The entire executive board of Vane Health Assurance is fired, as of this moment. We will be conducting a full-scale investigation, and I fully expect criminal charges to be filed for insurance fraud. It was a hostile takeover executed with the speed and precision of a surgical strike. Alistair had taught her well. Within an hour, Julian and Seraphina Vane were on the sidewalk, their corporate access revoked, their inheritances reduced to pocket change, and their empire gone. 2 weeks later, Mia sat in Alistair Vane's, now her, office. The 80th floor view was still the same. Her brother, Leo, now in remission, was sitting on the couch, sketching in a notebook. So, Leo said, not looking up. Big day, huh? First full day as Empress of the Universe. Mia smiled. Just chairwoman is fine. Her desk was clean, organized, but on the corner, in a simple, elegant glass frame, sat a single, crisp $5 bill. Alistair's associate, Marcus Thorne, knocked and entered. Ma'am, he said. He had seamlessly transferred his loyalty to her. The executive team from Vane Health is here. The new team. They're waiting in the conference room. Thank you, Marcus, she said. She stood up, straightening her suit jacket. She looked at the $5 bill one last time. Alistair had been wrong about one thing. He thought the tip was a reflection of the giver. But he had been the giver, and his cruelty that night had set in motion the very thing that saved his company. That $5 bill wasn't just a reflection, it was a catalyst. It was a test that had cost Julian and Seraphina $80 billion and had given Mia Sanchez the power to change the world. She walked out of the office, her brother at her side, ready to go to work. And so, a $5 tip, meant as a cruel joke, became the key to an $80 billion empire. Mia Sanchez wasn't just given a fortune, she earned it. She proved that integrity, even when you're a waitress with nothing, is worth more than all the money in the world. Alistair Vane didn't just find an heir. He found a successor who would correct his mistakes and build a legacy that was truly priceless. Mia didn't just change her own life, she changed the lives of thousands. Her first act, heading the Leo Sanchez Medical Innovation Fund, was to make the life-saving treatment that saved her brother available to everyone who needed it, regardless of their ability to pay. What did you think of Mia's story? Do you believe in karmic justice? Let us know in the comments below what you would have done if you were tipped $5 on a $200 bill. If you loved this story of an underdog turning the tables on the rich and powerful, please like this video and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more dramatic stories just like this one. We have new stories every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next.